Everybody for taking time out of your fall to be with us for a kickoff of training camp. Excited to to obviously welcome Marco, his first NHL training camp as head coach, and very excited to get things rolling tomorrow. So, without further ado, fire away.
Just first off, Don, everybody passed their physicals, and is everybody available to be on the ice tomorrow?
Adam was really concerned that somebody wasn't going to ask whether or not we were not in this, so thank you very much. David Pastrnak won't skate for the first couple of days. His last training block, he had got a little tendonitis, and we as a group just said, hey, load management at this point in time is what's best course of action. He'll be back on the ice. He's on the ice still, but he'll be in full practice early next week. So that's the only surprise we have. Everybody else is fully up and running.
Just a couple of days?
Yeah. Yep.
And
Good
just-
opportunity for Marco to, put a couple other guys in a catbird seat that, they would be excited to have. So, again, a couple of days that he'll be on the ice with our Johnny Mack and then early on with the rest of the group next week.
And last year, there's a lot of talk about how training camp was a little disjointed, and it led to maybe the team being behind the eight ball or whatever. Are you guys doing anything different to make it more cohesive?
We've spoken quite a bit internally about how we're going to do that and build camaraderie with, obviously new faces and changing leadership group, incorporating new guys. They're doing a good job of doing that on their own. But Marco, set a tone today that every day is about doing that and realizing that, the guy to your left and your right and getting to know people is really important as we go through camp. It's a competitive environment. We know that, and we want it to be that way. But we also want to make sure that collectively we have to operate as a team from day one. So that has been front and center in terms of what the leadership group and what the coaches are going to try and do each and every day. That's it. Oh, I say goodbye to our live streams that are fortunately also joining with us.
Don, what are the expectations for Casey Middlestad, and how can he kind of get back to where he was trending a couple years ago versus the production he had last year?
It probably starts with confidence, coming in now, knowing players and what his role is, rather than just joining a team that was in the opposite direction of the team that he was leaving last year. I think will be very good for Casey. He had a good off season. He's ready to go. He knows that production is part of why we acquired him and being able to be creative and drive offense for us. So he knows it. He wants it, and looking forward to the opportunity that he's going to have.
Don, when you look at the power play last year, what areas do you identify that kind of went wrong with that unit, and where do you think that can improve this year, whether it's with new personnel, Steve Spott, any of those other factors?
Well, I think Steve's a big part of that. His success in his previous environments, working with different players, obviously at high-level players. I said before it was a bit of a conundrum for us, bringing back 4 of the 5 guys, adding Elias, who's had a lot of success in the league in power play. They just, right from the early going, were out of sorts. They weren't on the same page. Entries had a real struggle. So we're going to work with it. And I know Steve's spent some time with key components of that already. I think that's going to be a big part of it, to be a little more cohesive group and understanding what everybody's roles and responsibilities are, and then going out and execute. And we're going to work at it. We're going to be committed to it. And but I think Steve taking command of that, will be an important part of Marco's coaching staff, and he was excited to bring Steve on board.
Don, it seems as though we're in an era when collaboration between GM, coach is greater than ever. Where does it end with you and Marco, him being the new guy here, to sort of let him do his thing, and the reason you brought him in, or, as far as avoiding micromanagement when it comes to saying, hey, look, Geeky was really good on off wing last year, and, so I'm sure you talked everything out, but it becomes his team at a certain point. How do you manage that with a brand new guy?
You got to give him latitude to how he wants to run training camp. I'm a sounding board in a lot of those things. I've had the good fortune of working with highly successful coaches. They all ran training camp a little differently. He has his own ideals of how he wants to do things, and then we just discuss, and he bounces it off his coaches and what's best. So the collaboration, as you reference, is an everyday event. He knows that he has the final say in terms of roster, who's playing with who, and he controls ice time. There's no tweak in system side of things. We may talk in terms of what might work and what doesn't work, but he has the final say in what's going to happen on the ice. I've gotten a lot of good advice along the way, but one of them was you go down and start coaching, you might as well coach. And that's not my job. That's not my role. My role is, and his role it will be to give me feedback on who plays well, who meshes together, whether or not we have holes in our lineup, and whether or not, same way you would talk to Mooj in terms of who's a call-up and who can fill this role and such. So from top to bottom and left to right, we have to be, in cohesive. We will not always agree on things, but when we leave the room, he has the final decision in terms of player personnel and the systems and how we're going to play.
Don, last year at this time, the story was Jeremy almost every day. Is there more of a sense of relief among the players and yourself that kind of thing is not hanging over your
I
head?
thanked Jeremy today for his attendance and was very appreciative of it. Congratulate him for punching above his weight class, he and Andrew Peak, in terms of getting engaged. So, obviously everybody accounted for and being present is a big part of what we're trying to do moving forward as an organization, and getting things back on track and playing the right way and having the success that we're going to hold everybody accountable to.
A couple, Don. The first one's just housekeeping. Anybody on a PTO? Did you have a lot of PTO requests?
Had a lot of discussions. We decided we were not going to bring anybody at this time. And I think that's a little bit of our determination of some of the players that we really want to see in some situations. And, we've done it in the past where players have come in and we've committed to during camp and giving them, a real good opportunity to make our team, and players have. And this year, we just decided as we were going through the process that we were going to stay committed. It doesn't mean we won't be keeping a close eye on several of those players that may or may not improve our team if they are indeed better.
And this question picks up on an expression you've used a number of times through the years about young guy, hoping to see young guys come in with their ears pinned back, recognizing there's opportunity, and there's opportunity in this camp. But this is a bit of an overarching. If you looked at two guys and how they came in, Kevin Miller on one side of the spectrum in terms of talent, and David Pasternak on his end, can you think back and look at their camps and how they seized opportunity and how it played out for them?
Yeah, I'll even add Brandon Carlo in that mix of players that I don't think anybody thought Brandon Carlo was making our team that year. So, Matty Poitras a couple of years ago, the young players dictate when they're sort of ready for more and more and more. And as you go through, it gets harder. In Kevin Miller's case, there was just a daily grind in Kevin, not unlike Adam McQuaid, and just sort of building confidence in himself, most importantly, but through the coaches and where you could rely on him. There was never a question of the effort level of Kevin, the execution and systematically how that was going to play out. But he started on a tryout. He went to an AHL contract. So there was a progression, because he just was, you really were not going to hold him back. In Pasta's case, he felt he was ready to play here. There's flash involved with Pasta. There's always been. There's never been a lack of confidence in terms of what he's able to do on the ice. Wasn't happy that we were sending him to the World Juniors that year. Came back and scored 2 goals and forced our hand to stick around. Again, you chew in, you think back and wonder whether or not that was the best plan, in terms of chewing through the contract at that point in time. But again, if a player earns the situation, then you have to reward the player. Poitras was the exact same thing. We could have sent him back that year, but he was playing well enough. He got hurt, didn't finish the year strongly because of that. Every player's different, every situation is unique, but the younger players and walking into camp, they just have to realize if they're good enough, we can't keep them out of the NHL. We're not trying to keep players out of the NHL. And Kevin Miller's a great example. If you're playing well enough, you deserve to be called up, then it's your opportunity up here. So take advantage of it.
I would think Kevin Miller's more relatable to most guys who walk into a room, yes? In terms of what they've got to develop, overcome.
Yes and no, because David Pastrnak still has to understand he's got to play without the puck. Brad went through, times, in his game, was an elite player at the American Hockey. He was an elite player everywhere he went, and then came up here and, was on the fourth line and earning opportunity and ice time and bought into it. So where everybody is in their own trajectory sometimes dictates when a player, and their personalities sometimes. But Kevin wasn't going to change what got him to that opportunity, gave him that opportunity. Pasta had to continue to evolve and realize that, I have to be a complete player in order for a team to be successful. I can score at this level, but in order for the team to be ultimately successful, I need to be a better two-way player.
I have two, if that's okay. The first one is just with Marco taking on this role. What are the expectations from you on how he's going to attack this and how he's going to use the opportunity that's ahead of him with this team?
From day one of going through the interview process, and even today, listen to Marco deliver his first speech, you just start to see him gain command as he's going through it. And his voice gets a little louder and a little stronger and his confidence grows. And that's the way it was going through the process. And, becoming a coach here, he's put in all those steps. Now I have to be there to support him in some of the things that are going to be unfamiliar, but he's still going to gravitate towards what's really comfortable for him. And that's getting in front of the players, that's teaching, that's reinforcing the structure and how our team is going to play and the four principles that he's going to, to make our players adhere to on a daily basis. Not about reacting to a win and a loss, but getting back to that. Now he's got to go through some of that stuff, and we'll have to continue to work through that. But that's what I'm here for, to support him through all those things and allow him to grow as much as our team's going to grow and build it the way he wants to build it and play the way he wants us to play.
And this is a little bit off topic, but with Zdeno going into the Hall of Fame in a couple months here, we still hear his name a number of years after he's left this organization, or as a player at least. What is his legacy with this, and what impact has he made, not just in his time playing, but as this has continued, the organization?
Well, I think there'll be ample opportunity to make sure that we amplify what Zdeno has meant to the Boston Bruins. Obviously, his Hall of Fame induction and other accolades that are likely to come his way and have come his way. To encapsulate that the way Kevin just described, Kevin Miller, Zdeno built himself into one of the best players to ever play in the National Hockey League. And his personality and his commitment to everything he does, it just speaks for itself. For him to be coming back to join us and to impart the leadership and a mentorship role, advisory role, I think is really exciting for the organization. He has his own goals off away from the rink that he's going to continue to pursue at a inspiring level for any of us that have done some of the similar things. And he's humble about it. So he's an impressive person.
Just every year, the Atlantic Division always seems to get tougher and tougher. Every team this year thinks they have a good chance to be one of those top three teams. What makes you believe in this current Bruins team that you've built is going to be one of those three teams?
Oh, we have to go out and earn that. I believe in our players because I think the way we're constituted, we're going to be a very competitive team. Now, as I said before, I'm not hiding from the fact that we're going to have to, produce by committee. And our power play, as we referenced earlier, has to come back online and give our players, especially our players that are on it, as well as the team, give them some confidence. But we have to go out and execute that. We have to defend at a better level, which we've typically done organizationally. Our goaltending needs to be in a better place. So we have to go out and earn that. But we're not going to lose the belief in what we think we're capable of accomplishing.
Two questions for you. This is the last opportunity for the fitness testing. What has that data collection meant for you in terms of learning about your roster and the players that you brought in through the years?
Well, through the years, physical testing has changed an awful lot, in the metrics that we're using. A lot of coaches strength coaches, performance guys had different ways of measuring those things. It's really returning to a little more of the science-driven and metrics on the ice. The benchmarks, the individual growth of a player, as opposed to a team-wide. I think it's become more individualized. The players year-round are monitoring that themselves now. So I think the investment on an individual level has grown to the fact that the team has to trust it a little bit, and the fact that it's been taken away from the fact that we can't test it, forces you to do that to some degree. Which means our development staff and our performance coaches do need to have an understanding of what players are doing individually in the off-season. So they do show up, we know where they are. But I think the metrics on the ice are starting to help us in that regard. It's not so much as geared towards, would we like to? Yeah, because there's a competitive aspect, to the physical testing. It's a measuring stick that I think we still want to adhere to because, let's be honest, it's a competitive business. Winning puck battles and such and being able to play at the highest level, you have to be at a fitness level that is unique.
It goes well to the second question I had. You mentioned competitiveness, competitive environment. I have to imagine, especially a lot of young players, they're looking around the room, they're comparing themselves to others, their peers, their competition. And that can be troublesome, especially for young players. So how do you want them to think about, you want to focus on yourself, but like you're competing with X many other guys for jobs. How should players think about that issue?
It has not changed. When you walk through the door for the first time, we talk about development camp and trying to take away a little bit of that apprehension as a young player. You have to walk through and take somebody's job. That's just the way that's the way our business works. And it's unique in the fact that during training camp and exhibition games, that you're teammates, but you're vying for the same job and opportunity. In the same way I described that you can't, when a player's playing well and he's good enough to play in the league, you can't keep him out. But if you're not, then you may have to bide your time elsewhere. You have to encourage the players, to play to their strengths, to do the things that they're capable of doing, teach them and reinforce the areas where they need to improve upon. And then you see incremental growth, especially in a younger player, but a new player coming in. We've made hard decisions, players that have come in and haven't performed, then we have to make alternative decisions. And we have to reinforce that. You have to be able to support the fact when a player earns the opportunity to be a Boston Bruin that we reward them with that.
What are you hoping to get offensively out of Victor Arvidsson? Is there anyone that you think his game can complement as well?
Goal scoring and interior play, competitiveness on puck, shot volume, commitment to get to the blue paint, power play, production, and leadership. I think all the above. There's a familiarity with Marco that should give him a leg up in some regard. A comfort level. He's been on some really good teams or competitive teams, and he's moved to another one. So ultimately, I think Arvy's excited about the opportunity and who he gets a chance to play with. He's playing in a top 6 role to start out, so we have to have production to come with it.
Don, you have excuse me, a lot of guys here in camp competing for similar roles, and obviously not all of them can make the NHL roster. But is there room for all these guys within the organization from the NHL level, the AHL, ECHL? I mean, do you have the room to keep everyone, you think, or could you anticipate some guy doesn't make it?
Well, I mean, there's call it 46 spots that a guy gets to play pretty consistently. Injuries, you get through camp and, if a player beats another player out, one might be exposed to waivers. So there's plenty of opportunity for players to assert themselves and earn a role. But they have to do that. They have to come in and take that job at either level, to say the truth. But as I said before, we're not in the business of keeping players that are ready to help us at the NHL level out of that and not give them that opportunity to have success.
Don, there was an understanding seemingly coming into last season that Jeremy Swayman, with his new
contract would play a significantly larger role in terms of the number of games and so forth. At the end of last year, Corpusalo indicated he was hoping to play more. Is there a plan kind of in place on what you'd like to see Swayman's workload be and the balance overall?
There's always been an approach to look at the schedule, look at the volume, look at history of when a player, playing consecutive games. Ultimately, we never want to deviate from it because I think it's for the health and the best interest of the individual as well as the club. There is a competitive level that, I'm not going to, exclude Michael DiPietro in the year he had in terms of pushing, for an opportunity himself. So, I respect that Corpy said, hey, listen, I don't think you played me enough. Did I get in rhythm? And at times we had internal debate on whether or not we were forcing the issue to get Sway back in rhythm and going through some of those things. We're just going to go through what the volume looks like in the course of a month and the travel, and when a player, we make really pragmatic decisions, we open with a back-to-back. So we're going to plan accordingly, but performance is going to dictate how our team makes the ultimate decisions between Marco and Bob.
Has that changed at all from last year, given the load that Swayman did carry? Would you think of that as similar? Or based on the calendar and so forth, would you think of that as similar? Or is it something that there are things you learned from that last year that whether it's about goaltending in general or Swayman specifically, that you'd look at it a little bit differently based on last year?
I don't know whether or not I'd categorize it in terms of that player. I think the position and how we want to approach it and what's best served for the player going in the net that night and giving us the best opportunity to win, it should be the overriding decision. Back to earlier in terms of decision-making, and ultimately, I'm not in charge of who goes in the net. I'll share my opinion, and we might, after the fact, get a chance to say, I told you so, or vice versa. So we'll go through that again. Ultimately, those guys decide, Marco and Bob decide when a player's playing. The data, the history, all the things I referenced before in terms of a player in the position he's in, that should carry weight as well when we make that decision. Do I think we could have done it better last year? A lot of things better, including that.
On Elias Lindholm and Zadorov, how much do you think having that 1 year under their belt in the organization and performing better down the stretch will help them into the second year here?
Elias has already made a comment that, he wanted to flush a lot of last year. He did not, get to the level that he expects of himself. He finished the year strongly and where they referenced earlier in the year, they didn't have much chemistry. He and Pasta, they played really well and they won the World Championships and he felt he played well there. So I think there's a good feeling in terms of where Elias is coming back and where he can contribute and be better for our club. And a little bit similarly with Z, except that he actually statistically had a pretty good year. He just didn't expect to come to a team and not make the playoffs. And he came here for all the right reasons. He wants to impact our club for all the right reasons. He got off to a tough start, taking some penalties early on that, needs to temper how he impacts a game. And now he's in a position, they both are in positions to be more comfortable in their own skin and where they can contribute, and that spills over into a leadership situation too. So we expect growth in both players and to impact our team in a more positive manner for sure.
Yeah, and just following up on Zdeno, is there a defined role for him, or is he just a general sounding board for players, coaches?
No, we're ironing out. In the last few weeks, he got back from Europe, and Marco and he have spent some time together to sort of streamline and identify, put some guardrails up in terms of where he's going to make his impact. So we'll be announcing that in the near future in what his defined role is, but we've got it pretty much spec'd out at this point.
Got time for two more with Don. Pass it on, please.
Don, these guys weren't players of your era, so this might not be a fair question in terms of asking you for remembrances or anything, but Ken Dryden and Eddie Jockman, two great goaltenders. Come across them in your career or interface or anything?
Other than being a fan of Ken Dryden and similar Ivy League path, just a remarkable person on and off the ice. And, people talk about him being a towering presence, but I think he had that cast a shadow both as a goaltender, as a professional, as a person. I don't know, I mean, obviously I know Eddie and his history in the league, don't know him personally. But, difficult losses that the league and their families, your heart goes out to them.